Train the muscles, not the joints. So welcome back to Natural Gallant Bodybuilding, and today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about light weights versus heavy weights and which is more dangerous. So today I had one of my awesome subscribers comment and say that he felt, in his own opinion, that lighter weights were more dangerous than heavy weights because lighter weights have a tendency to be able to give you tendonitis if you do improper form or overuse injuries of some sort, such as bursitis and all this kind of thing. And I understand where he's coming from. But based on that logic, that would be akin to saying getting hit by a tricycle is more dangerous than getting hit by a freight train because the tricycle gives you scratches and bruises, right? So I'm going to explain here a little bit more so here. Just let me elaborate. Just give me a moment. But anyway, the bottom line is heavyweights are definitely more dangerous than lightweights. Now, that said, it doesn't mean that lightweights keep you free from injury for sure, okay? Because if you're bouncing lightweights all over the place or using momentum, momentum can mimic heavyweights. And if you combine that with a heavy stretch, like an extreme stretch of some sort, you will definitely cause bursitis. You will definitely cause a muscle tear or pull of some sort as well. Okay, so that aside, momentum can mimic heavy weights. So in some cases, sometimes people think when they're lifting light weights that keeps them free from all danger. Okay, so in that way, light weights can be more dangerous because it might give you that false sort of sense of security, thinking that, okay, I'm using lightweight, it's not going to hurt me if I just start swinging this weight around randomly, right? Really ballistically or something. So in that way, yes, light weights can be dangerous because they might lull you into a false sense of security. But the fact is that heavyweights are definitely more dangerous. I believe in using heavyweights and lightweights. You've seen me do both. I'm not a big time proponent of one or the other. I just know that strength is necessary. You need to gain strength in order to gain muscle. Bottom line. Otherwise, just doing 5-pound dumbbells for sets of thousands of reps would actually increase muscle mass and make huge gorilla type pecs and lats and everything. It just doesn't happen that way. You need to gain strength. So the bottom line is, it's a necessary evil. In this whole bodybuilding game or lifting weights game, you do have to challenge the body, but can you do it safely? A little sore from last day's chest workout, but that's the way I like it. So I can go a little bit lighter today and get a good pump. Lighter. So of course, no matter how careful you are, injuries do happen. There's really no way of avoiding injuries. It does happen. It's a part of pushing the body. Sometimes it will happen, but can you keep the injuries from being extreme? That's really the question. So if you are careful and you do listen to the body, such as I just said to you, I'm a little bit sore, a little bit tight today, so I'm repping out and I'm enjoying that. But it would definitely not be a day that I would want to be doing sets of 2 or 3 on a bench press or something, because if you're already sore, a little bit tight, that's not the day you want to push into those really super heavy weights, okay? Because that's when your muscles are a little bit more brittle, that's when the tendons might be a little bit more inflamed up or they need a little bit of recovery, so you got to make sure you pay attention to the body. Now the thing is, how do you lift heavy weights carefully? I've talked about this a little bit with how powerlifters train. What you want to do is when you lift those heavy weights, you want to have 1 or 2 reps in the bank. Okay, so say I do a set. I'm not going to absolute failure on the sets when I'm lifting super heavy weights because I want to make sure that groove is good and I don't lose coordination or lose control of the weight, and that will keep me from getting injured. Okay, so this is the reason why a lot of powerlifters or people that are lifting heavy weights, they don't go to failure because they want to get used to holding onto that heavy weight and they want to make sure that they have perfect coordination at all times, or at least good coordination. And you don't want to have those stall type reps, you know, those reps where all of a sudden you're halfway up and then you got to strain that last little millimeter up in order to get that rep done. Those are the reps that are more dangerous when you get into the super heavy weight. This is a little bit off topic, but that beat in the background, that's called Orchestral Boom. That's a new beat I just made. Check it out. All right, let's do some sets here. So as you can see, I've been messing around with a lot more volume. So when I'm doing rep out days or lighter weight days, then sometimes I will do more volume to get a little bit more intensity going, because volume is one form of intensity. That's one form of increasing the intensity on your muscle. Another form is increasing the weight. So sometimes when I'm doing super heavy weights, then I won't do quite as much volume. So as you noticed, I did quite a bit of volume for chest. Now I'm going to go over to back, and of course I'm doing a 2-day split program right now. So people are always asking me, what split do you do, Jason? What split do you do? Well, the splits that are on my website are the splits that I do. Okay, that's why I put them on there. I can confidently say that these splits work because I have used them and I like them, and that's why I wrote them out and said, hey guys, here's the format. Okay, so the 2-day split is usually what I stick to, but I do 3-day splits from time to time, or sometimes I will do whole body workouts. And sometimes you guys have also seen that, where I put a whole body workout in the middle of my week, or do a couple days where I do whole body workouts, and then the other 4 days I'll do a 2-day split. So I'm still training 5 to 6 days a week. Now somebody asked me the other day, they said, Jason, what is the advantages and disadvantages to a 2-day split? Now, I can't come up with any disadvantages for myself. That's why I like it. Otherwise I wouldn't be doing it. But if I was going to come up with a disadvantage, I'd say if you're the type of person that likes to do massive amounts of volume, so you get that really good pump and everything, then maybe, yeah, you might be disappointed because you're like, well, I can't get away with as much volume and still recover in order to be able to train the muscle again in 2 days. Okay. But the thing is that people underestimate the advantage of the 2-day split, because sometimes when you're a little bit sore, just a tiny bit, and then you go train that muscle again, you get this massive pump from that. So you don't need quite as many sets to do it. So once again, I just turned a disadvantage into an advantage. I turned a minus into a plus, I guess you could say. So the bottom line is that for people that just like to do those really long workouts and just concentrate on one body part, yeah, they might not like the 2-day split because of it. Now, the thing is, most of the time when you do a 2-day split, your volume will be lower, but the odd time, my volume is almost as high as if I was doing a body part only 1 day a week, but I'm doing the body part 3 times because I'm pushing that recovery. I'm pushing myself into higher levels of intensity. So once I've increased the frequency, then I will start working in a little bit more volume or a little bit more intensity in weight, just from time to time, to push the body and say, hey, how much can you adapt? Can you adapt to this now? Can you adapt to this? Can you gain some muscle here? Can you gain some more strength endurance here? So it's not like a 2-day split is always like a set point of 5 sets or 4 sets or 6 sets or 10 sets. I mess around with the volume depending on how I'm feeling and depending on how my body is responding. So once again, as a general rule, when I do heavier weight, I do less sets. So say I'm doing sets of 5 or 7 or 8 reps, then I will take that intensity into account and have less sets for a workout. Now, if I'm doing sets of 20 or 15 or 25, sure, there's a lot of energetic overload. I'm burning a lot of energy, a lot of glycogen in the muscle, but it's not quite as hard on the overall nervous system. I find heavier weight, especially with the compound lifts like squats and deadlifts and things, I find that those lifts, when you work in really heavy rep ranges, such as 5 to 8 reps, they take a lot more out of your system. Therefore, I might feel inclined to back off on the amount of sets if I'm doing frequent workouts like a 2-day split. So it's important when you assess a workout program to understand that the workout program isn't the end-all be-all. It is part of an overall picture that includes your eating and your sleep and your stress levels, all this kind of stuff. So I'm going to talk about this in 1 second here.
Just try to get the stretch, man.
And before I get to that, you will notice that I did the pump and stretch principle here. Okay, I started off with pumping with some seated rows, then I did some bent over rows, and now I'm doing dumbbell pullovers, and I'm doing it my own specific way. I do keep the elbows quite a bit bent because I am internally rotating at the top because I do include the lats, and the lats are internal rotators. Some people don't know this. And I also keep some of the stress off of the shoulder joint because I do have that labral tear and everything by keeping the elbows bent at the bottom. So am I getting a little bit of tricep in here? Yes, if I focus on straightening the arms, but I'm not really focusing on straightening the arms as much as I'm focusing on internally rotating, okay? So that's why it's really hitting my lat. Okay, so now back to what I was gonna say. What I'm gonna say about your workout program is you will find that depending on your diet and your stress level and your sleep, it will make a big difference on how much volume and how much recovery that your body will need from any given workout. So I find a lot of times people say, God, Jason, I can't do sets of 15. I can't do 15 reps or 20 reps, or I can't do 5 or 10 sets for a workout. They'll say this stuff to me, but most of the time when I look at their diet or look at what they're eating, the eating and the lifestyle choice is not supporting the workout in the gym. So a lot of times people say, well, I want to achieve great things. I want to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, but then I want to basically work my butt off in every other aspect of my life and basically spread myself too thin. So what you have to do is make a conscious decision to say my eating and my sleep, and no matter what it is I'm doing in my life, this has to support this 1 hour or 2 hours a day that I'm spending in the gym. And if you don't do this, you will not get the same results as, say, somebody else that's really focusing on it.
So you guys have noticed that I'm not keeping my arms straight, I'm keeping them bent, but I'm focused on externally rotating the arms and then internally rotating, because the lats are internal rotators, and so is the chest, by the way. So when I rotate out and then rotate in, that actually works the lats. Now the reason why I'm not straightening the arms is because it's a little bit harder on the shoulders to do that. And also, you know, because of the slap tear I have on the shoulder here, it's unnecessary risk for the joint and it causes a little bit more stress. So if I keep the arms bent, takes some of the stress off the joint itself, it keeps it more on the muscle belly for me. This might be different for you though.
So that was more of a hands-on explanation on why I do the dumbbell pullover the way that I do it. You may find that you have to do it a little bit differently. So like I said, just feel free to find your own way. Like I said, injury history and the way you're built will also play a factor, but just experiment around with it. There's not necessarily one right way, except for the way that keeps as much mileage off the joint as possible and the way that also keeps the stress on the lat. I find a lot of people are doing certain movements, but they're not necessarily conscious of where they are feeling the movements. So try to really connect to the movement. Try to find out, okay, what is this working? Where am I feeling this movement? Just don't do it randomly, just moving your arms around. Find out where you're feeling it, and if you're not feeling it in the lats, then adjust your technique. Maybe you need to internally rotate those elbows. Maybe you need to bring those elbows in when you're in the stretch part of the motion in order to actually facilitate lat recruitment. So one of the reasons why I'm speaking about workout programs and your daily patterns and how your diet and nutrition and sleep and lifestyle choices and everything all plays a factor in your results is because it's very apparent in my life about how focused I am when it comes down to my training. Because right now my house is upside down. I mean, I've got boxes everywhere. The kitchen's a mess. It's very hard to cook or to have a pattern when it comes down to eating properly. And I'm very, very conscious of how focused I am on a daily basis towards my workout that happens every evening.
Don't limit yourself. Don't limit yourself, man. I'm not working out for biceps. I'm working out for immortality. Fucking right. So I'm gonna be Thor by the time I'm done. Here.
So my point is, your focus does not begin in the gym. That's where it ends. Your focus really begins when you get up. That's when your focus begins. That's when you start to make choices throughout the entire day that will assist you with having a more powerful and passionate workout. Every choice you make when it comes down to diet, when it comes down to sleep, when it comes down to daily activities, all of these things have to support your workout if you want to get the most results out of these workouts. And yes, if you're wondering, I just did it again. I applied the pump and stretch principle to my bicep training. To end off the workout, I'm going to do about 3 sets of calf raises, and I'm just bending the knees there just because I'm trying to get an extra contraction. Now when I come down, I also keep the knees slightly bent, of course. That keeps the stress off the tendons and the Achilles tendon and everything. I try not to stretch down too low because I find then the stress transfers to the ankles and comes off of the calf muscle itself, so I'm not really getting an extra stretch there. Now I haven't been training my calves extremely seriously for a while, so now I'm just trying to get back into the swing of things to build these little puppies up, okay? Now, if you guys are doing some plyometrics, because I did that video on the secret to building calves, so if you're doing jumps in between your sets, make sure you're not doing that too often, and make sure if you are doing jumping, don't jump too aggressively. Just do little skipping movements, and that will help getting the calf more developed. But remember, jumping is like doing heavy eccentrics or heavy negatives, so that can be a lot harder on your tendons and stuff, so don't do that too much. I'd recommend once every 2 weeks or something, the most. You don't need to do it every single calf workout. Just once in a while, it's enough to kind of shock the system and get the calves to grow. So here you can see that I'm stretching the calf in front of me, and I'm actually just going back and forth. I'm actually just wobbling back and forth there because I'm just trying to get a stretch of the outer head and the inner head. Usually I hold it for about a minute to a minute and a half of each calf, and it really feels pretty good. So here's the final set. I'm just getting a good little pump here. You can see those puppies are already growing. And those of you guys that have tuned in this long and stuck around right to the end of the video, thanks a lot for tuning in. And make sure you visit me at my website, naturalgallantbodybuilding.com. And if you have a chance, make sure you tune in for the live Q&A on Saturdays as well. Okay, so take care for now, and thanks for watching.
Even bigger than you are!
Sure, my...